We all have it. It is a quiet voice, a deep feeling that whispers to us throughout our lives. It's the sense that some things are right and other things are wrong. This inner compass is what we call morality. It is the framework we use to guide our choices, to shape our actions, and to judge the behavior of others. It helps us navigate the complex world of human interaction. Without it, we would be lost, drifting without a map in a sea of endless possibilities. Morality tells us that helping someone in need is good. It tells us that harming someone without cause is bad. These are not just ideas we learn, they feel like fundamental truths about the world we live in. This journey to understand right and wrong is a human journey. It is a quest that has captivated thinkers, philosophers, and ordinary people for thousands of years. Why do we feel this pull toward goodness? Where does this sense of justice come from? Is it something we invent, or is it something we discover? The answers to these questions are not just for classrooms or books. They shape our laws, our communities, and the very way we see ourselves. Morality is the invisible architecture of our societies. It is the foundation upon which we build relationships, trust, and a shared sense of purpose. It is what allows us to live together, to cooperate, and to strive for something better than just our own survival. Think about the simplest acts of kindness: sharing food with a hungry stranger, comforting a crying child, speaking up for someone who is being treated unfairly. These actions resonate with us on a profound level. We recognize them as good. We don't need a complex theory to understand them. Now think about acts of cruelty, betrayal, theft, or needless violence. We recoil from these things. We feel a natural sense of outrage or sadness. This universal reaction suggests that morality is not just a matter of personal taste, like preferring one flavor of ice cream over another. It points to something deeper, something woven into the fabric of our shared human experience. So, morality matters because it is about more than just rules. It is about human dignity. It is about recognizing the inherent worth of every single person. When we act morally, we are affirming that value. We are saying that people matter, that their feelings matter, and that their lives have meaning. This is why the great stories of history, the ones we tell over and over, are often stories of moral struggle. They are tales of heroes who choose the right path even when it is hard. They are stories of justice triumphing over injustice. They remind us that our choices have weight, that they ripple out and affect the world around us. Understanding morality is the first step to living a meaningful life. When we talk about where morality comes from, we find ourselves at a fork in the road. There are two main paths we can take. One path is called objective morality. Imagine a mountain. The mountain exists whether anyone sees it or not. It has a real shape and a real height. It is an objective fact. Objective morality is like that mountain. It suggests that certain things are right or wrong, and this truth exists independently of what any single person thinks or what any society decides. It is a universal standard that applies to everyone, everywhere, at all times. According to this view, things like compassion and justice are good in themselves, not just because we feel they are. The other path is called subjective morality. This path suggests that morality is not like a mountain, but more like a personal opinion. It is relative. Subjective morality can be based on the feelings of an individual. If a person truly believes an action is right, then for them it is right. Or it can be based on the consensus of a group or a culture. If a society decides that something is acceptable, then within that society it becomes morally acceptable. In this view, there is no ultimate universal standard of right and wrong. There are only different perspectives, different traditions, and different feelings. What is right for you might not be right for me. What is wrong in one culture might be perfectly fine in another. Let's use a simple example to see the difference clearly. Consider the act of torturing a child for fun. An objective view of morality would say this is absolutely, unequivocally wrong. It is wrong regardless of who is doing it, where they are from, or what they believe. The wrongness is a real feature of the act itself. It is a moral fact, as real as the fact that the earth revolves around the sun. It doesn't matter if a lone individual or even an entire culture were to suddenly claim it was good. They would simply be wrong. The moral law against such a heinous act stands firm, like a lighthouse in a storm, a fixed point of reference. Now let's look at the same act through the lens of subjective morality. If morality is purely subjective, we run into a serious problem. We can say that we personally find torturing a child to be disgusting. Our society can pass laws against it. but we cannot say that it is objectively wrong. If a different culture or an individual truly felt that this act was permissible or even enjoyable, we would have no ultimate basis to condemn them. We could only say that their moral code differs from ours. This is the core of the debate. Is morality a fixed star we navigate by, or is it something we create ourselves, changing with the winds of opinion and the tides of culture? If we choose the path of subjective morality, we may think we are promoting tolerance and open-mindedness, but we soon find that we are building our society on a foundation of sand. When right and wrong are just a matter of personal or group opinion, our basis for justice crumbles. Imagine a court of law. If a person on trial for theft simply says, "In my personal moral code, taking what I need is perfectly acceptable," what can a judge say? If there is no objective standard, the judge can only reply, "Well, in our society's moral code, it is not." The argument becomes a power struggle, not a pursuit of justice. The group with the most power gets to impose its preferences on everyone else. This leads to profound confusion and contradiction in real life. Consider the historic fight against slavery. The abolitionists who fought to end slavery did so because they believed it was inherently and objectively wrong. They argued that slavery violated a higher moral law, a law that stood above the opinions and traditions of their society. If morality were merely subjective, their argument would have no weight. The slave owners could simply have replied, "Our Southern culture sees slavery as a moral good, a part of our way of life. Your opinion is different, but it is not more valid than ours." Subjective morality would have left the abolitionists with no ground to stand on, except their own feelings. We see this problem arise in modern debates as well. When we condemn atrocities happening in other parts of the world, like genocide or ethnic cleansing, on what basis do we do so? If we are consistent subjectivists, we can only say that we don't like what is happening. We can't say it is truly wrong. The perpetrators could argue that their actions are justified by their own cultural or political beliefs. Without an objective standard, our condemnations are just expressions of our cultural taste. We lose the ability to make meaningful moral judgments about anyone outside of our own bubble. The idea of universal human rights, the very concept that protects the vulnerable, becomes meaningless. Ultimately, subjective morality leads to a world where might makes right. If there is no real right or wrong, then the only thing that matters is power. The person or group with the strength to enforce their will gets to define morality for everyone else. This is a terrifying prospect. It means that progress is an illusion. We can't say that our society is morally better than societies of the past. We can only say it is different. We can't strive for a more just and compassionate world, because the very ideas of just and compassionate have no real meaning. They are just words we use to describe our current preferences. Building on sand means the entire structure of our moral world is always one wave away from collapse. So, if subjective morality is a house built on sand, where can we find solid rock? Where can we find a foundation for objective morality that is truly unchanging and universal? The Christian perspective offers a powerful answer. It proposes that the ultimate standard for goodness is not a set of rules written in a book, but the very nature of God Himself. God is not just a being who decides what is good, He is goodness. His character is the perfect, eternal, and unchanging source of all moral value. His nature is what makes love, justice, mercy, and faithfulness good. They are good because they reflect who He is. This is a profound idea. It means that moral laws are not arbitrary commands that God made up one day. They are expressions of His own perfect being. When the Bible commands us to love our neighbor, it is because God is love. When it tells us to be just, it is because God is perfectly just. When it calls us to be faithful, it is because God is eternally faithful. This anchors morality in something that is absolute and unchangeable. God's nature does not shift with cultural trends or personal opinions. It is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Therefore, the moral truths that flow from His nature are also constant and universal. This perspective solves a classic philosophical puzzle known as the Euthyphro dilemma. The puzzle asks, is something good because God commands it, or does God command it because it is good? If we say it's good just because God commands it, then goodness seems arbitrary. God could have commanded cruelty, and that would have made it good. But if we say God commands it because it is good, then it seems there is a standard of goodness outside of and above God. The Christian view presents a third option. Goodness is not arbitrary, nor is it above God. Goodness is grounded in God's own immutable essence. He commands what is good because it aligns with his own perfect character. This gives morality a weight and a reality that no other worldview can provide. It's not just a human invention or a biological impulse. It is a reflection of the ultimate reality of the universe. The moral law is not just a social contract we agree to for our own benefit. It is a feature of the cosmos, placed there by the Creator. This means that when we act with compassion or courage, we are not just following our feelings. We are aligning ourselves with the very grain of the universe. We are participating in something real and eternal. Our moral choices have cosmic significance because they echo the character of the God who made us and everything else. A common response to this idea is the question, but can't people be good without believing in God? This is an important question, and the answer is absolutely yes. There are many atheists, agnostics, and people of all beliefs who live wonderful, compassionate, and moral lives. They love their families, contribute to their communities, and often show great courage in standing up for what is right. The question is not whether people can be good without God. The real question is, if God does not exist, can there be any objective foundation for what good even means? This is the core of the atheist's dilemma. Without God, where does objective morality come from? If the universe is just matter and energy, a product of blind, unguided physical processes, then how can a concept like good or evil have any real meaning? These are not physical properties. You cannot find wrongness in a laboratory or measure justice with a scientific instrument. In a purely materialistic universe, human beings are just complex arrangements of atoms. Our thoughts and feelings are just chemical reactions in our brains. So when we say that murder is wrong, what are we actually saying? We are expressing a strong, personal feeling, a deeply ingrained evolutionary response, or a social convention. But we cannot say it is objectively wrong. This creates a significant problem for the atheist who wants to believe in objective moral values. They may feel strongly that things like human rights are real and universal. They may be outraged by oppression and injustice anywhere in the world, but their worldview struggles to provide a rational basis for that outrage. If there is no transcendent source of moral value, then all morality becomes subjective or relative. One person's feeling about justice is no more valid than another's. One society's condemnation of genocide is just a cultural preference, no more true than the perpetrator's justification for it. The atheist is left with moral feelings, but no moral facts. So, while an atheist can certainly behave in a way that a Christian would call good, the atheist worldview itself cannot account for why that behavior is objectively good. It is like someone who enjoys the warmth and light of a fire but denies that the fire exists. They can feel the effects, but they cannot explain the cause. They are borrowing moral capital from a worldview they reject. They are using concepts like justice, rights, and compassion as if they are real, objective truths, while their underlying philosophy of a random, purposeless universe suggests these concepts are nothing more than useful fictions or subjective illusions. This is the deep, unresolved tension at the heart of atheistic ethics. In an attempt to solve this dilemma, those who reject a divine source for morality often turn to other explanations. They look to science, particularly evolution, or to social contracts and human reason. These explanations contain elements of truth, but ultimately they fall short of providing a solid foundation for objective morality. They can describe how we have moral feelings, but they cannot tell us why we ought to obey them. They can explain the is of human behavior, but they cannot justify the ought of moral obligation. This is a crucial distinction that often gets lost in the discussion. Let's consider the evolutionary explanation. This view suggests that our moral sense is a product of natural selection. Behaviors like altruism, cooperation, and empathy helped our ancestors survive and reproduce. So, these traits were passed down through our genes. This is likely true to some extent. It helps explain why we naturally feel compassion for our kin and our tribe. But evolution cannot tell us what is objectively right or wrong. Evolution is just a process of survival. If a different set of behaviors, perhaps more selfish or violent ones, had been more advantageous for survival, then those would be our moral instincts today. Evolution can explain why we feel we ought to be good, but it can't justify why we actually ought to be good. Another popular explanation is the idea of a social contract. This theory proposes that morality is a set of rules that we humans agree to follow for our mutual benefit. We agree not to steal from each other so that we won't be stolen from. We agree not to harm each other so that we won't be harmed. This makes sense for creating a stable society. However, it still makes morality a human invention, and a fragile one at that. What happens when it is in my personal interest to break the contract, especially if I think I can get away with it? The social contract only works as long as it benefits me. It provides no reason to act morally when it requires personal sacrifice. Finally, some appeal to pure human reason or emotional empathy as the source of morality. We can reason that a world with less suffering is better than a world with more suffering, and our empathy allows us to feel the pain of others. But this still leaves us on shaky ground. Why is less suffering the ultimate standard? A different person might reason that strength or purity is the highest good, even if it causes suffering. And what about when our empathy fails us? We tend to feel more empathy for people who are like us. Reason and empathy are powerful tools, but they are our tools. They are not an external, objective standard. They are echoes of a truth, but not the source of it. The Christian worldview provides a reason to be good that is both deeply personal and unshakably objective. It does not just demand moral behavior, it provides a powerful motivation for it. The foundation of this motivation is not fear of punishment or hope of reward, though those can be factors. The primary reason for a Christian to pursue a moral life is a response of love and gratitude to God. It is about relationship, because God, in His infinite love, created us and redeemed us. Our desire is to live in a way that honors Him. Moral living becomes an act of worship, a way of saying thank you for the ultimate gift of grace. This view gives us a reason to be good even when no one is watching. If morality is just a social contract, then the smart thing to do is to be immoral whenever you can get away with it. But if God is the source of morality, and He is always present, then our actions always matter. Our secret thoughts, our private choices, our hidden acts of kindness or cruelty, they all take place before the eyes of a loving and just God. This doesn't mean a life of constant anxiety, but rather a life of constant accountability. It imbues every moment with meaning and purpose. It calls us to a higher standard, not out of fear, but out of a desire to reflect the goodness of the one who made us. Furthermore, Christianity provides a powerful framework for dealing with our moral failures. Other systems can leave us with crushing guilt or a cynical sense of hopelessness when we fail to live up to our own standards. We all know we should be better than we are. The Christian faith acknowledges this reality head-on. It teaches that we are all flawed, that we all fall short of the perfect moral standard of God's nature, but it doesn't leave us there. It offers forgiveness and transformation through faith in Jesus Christ. This grace frees us from the burden of perfectionism and empowers us to get up and try again, knowing we are loved and forgiven. This perspective also provides a compelling reason to love even our enemies. This is perhaps the most radical and difficult of all moral commands. From an evolutionary or social contract perspective, loving one's enemies is nonsensical. It goes against our survival instincts and our sense of fairness. But from a Christian perspective, it makes perfect sense. We are called to love our enemies because God loved us when we were His enemies. We are to extend grace to others because we have received an immeasurable grace ourselves. This is not a command we can follow through our own strength. It is a supernatural calling that flows directly from understanding the character and actions of God. But if morality comes from God, what about people who have never heard of the Bible or of the Christian God? How can they know the difference between right and wrong? This is a fair and important question, and the Christian worldview has a compelling answer. The Bible itself teaches that God has not left Himself without a witness. He has written His moral law not just in Scripture, but on the very hearts of all people. The Apostle Paul wrote about this in his letter to the Romans. He observed that even people who do not have the written law often do, by nature, the things the law requires. This is what we call the conscience. It is that innate, universal sense of ought that we all experience. It is the reason why people across different cultures and throughout history have arrived at remarkably similar moral codes. They have all recognized that murder is wrong, that theft is wrong, that we should care for the young and the vulnerable. These are not just random coincidences. They are evidence of a universal moral law that is accessible to everyone, regardless of their religious beliefs. Our conscience acts as an internal witness, testifying to the objective standard of goodness that comes from God. Of course, our conscience is not perfect. Like every other part of our human nature, it has been affected by our brokenness. It can be ignored, suppressed, or seared. It can be misinformed by a flawed culture or our own selfish desires. This is why God also revealed his moral law more clearly and explicitly in the Bible. The scriptures do not introduce a new morality. Instead, they clarify and confirm the moral law that is already written on our hearts. They serve as a more reliable guide, a clearer map, to help us correct the errors of our fallible consciences and see the path of righteousness more clearly. So, the fact that an atheist can know that kindness is good and cruelty is bad does not disprove the existence of God. In fact, it does the opposite. It supports the Christian claim that God has placed a moral compass inside every human being. The atheist is able to recognize objective moral truths precisely because the author of morality has made those truths known to them, whether they acknowledge the author or not. The knowledge of right and wrong is a gift from the Creator to all of his creation. It is a signpost, pointing everyone, believer and non-believer alike, toward the ultimate source of all goodness, truth, and beauty. As we stand at the end of our journey, the two paths are clear before us. One path, subjective morality, tells us that right and wrong are human inventions. It seems liberating at first, but it leads to a dead end of contradiction and despair. It robs us of any real basis for justice, any hope for moral progress, and any meaning beyond our own fleeting desires. It leaves us with a world where the only thing that truly matters is power. The other path, objective morality, tells us that right and wrong are real. It tells us that our deep-seated sense that some things are truly evil and some things are truly good is not an illusion. But for morality to be objective, it must have an objective source. It must be grounded in something that is outside of ourselves, something that is unchanging and absolute. We have seen that evolution, social contracts, and human reason, while offering partial insights, cannot provide this solid foundation. They can describe our moral feelings, but they cannot ground our moral duties. They leave us with a sense of ought, but no ultimate reason why. The only truly adequate foundation for objective moral values and duties is a transcendent, personal, and perfectly good being. In other words, the existence of objective morality points directly to the existence of God. This is not just a philosophical game. It has profound implications for every aspect of our lives. If there is a God who is the source of all goodness, then our lives have an ultimate purpose. Our choices have eternal significance. We are not just random collections of atoms in a meaningless universe. We are moral beings created in the image of a moral God, designed to live in a relationship of love with Him and with one another. This gives us a reason to strive for justice, to practice compassion, and to seek forgiveness when we fail. It gives us a hope that extends beyond our present struggles. So, the battle for morality is not just an academic debate. It is a battle for the soul of our world. The belief in a God who is the source of goodness provides the most coherent and compelling reason for why we should be good. It affirms our deepest intuitions that love is better than hate, that justice is better than oppression, and that every human life has an immeasurable and sacred value. This truth doesn't just make sense of the world, it has the power to change it. It calls each of us to live up to the moral law written on our hearts, and in doing so, to reflect the goodness of the God who put it there.